So, well, if last week you enjoyed the banter back and forth between me and Ryan with Illinois, I mentioned a little bit that I also have some issues with Purdue. I just have issues with everybody, apparently. Sorry, Russ, I did not wear my Purdue shirt today. That's not coming from home field yet. So I'll wear it next episode that you're on when it's actually come in. But I don't have one for Purdue. It's like I did order it, though. It's like a Pete guy. Anyway, I don't want to bore people with my apparel choices, but essentially, like, Purdue has not taken anybody from the transfer portal. They've taken 6 freshmen in. Shocker, they have a 7'3" guy coming in this recruiting class, which is just so on par for Matt Painter. I love that. And so it's just a really, really interesting choice. You lose the National Player of the Year. Mason Gillis goes into the portal as well, 6th man of the year in the Big Ten. And you still have Braden Smith, you still have Fletcher Lawyer, you still have kaufman-renn, but he didn't bring in a piece that I felt like could secure that 3 spot or that 4 spot. Not saying that the piece that they bring in won't be good, but if you bring in, possibly a better piece that could hold that spot down, I feel like the outlook for Purdue this season could be better. But at the end of the day, I just don't know in this day and age of college basketball if I would rely on recruits as much as Purdue is. And that's kind of what I was getting at with Ryan, is like, I don't think you should rely on transfers as much as Brad Underwood is. And these two programs are just like polar opposites, where Illinois literally has less scholarship players staying on the team than Purdue is bringing in recruits coming into their team. So, Russ, I mean, help me out here, man. Is this a strategy you're okay with like 0 transfers? Because you saw what Lance Jones did last year. You saw how he was able to help. Is this something you're okay with? Or is this something where you're like, I wish Matt Painter would have taken at least 1 transfer?
Yeah, so this is where I'm going to cook again a little bit, as Dylan says. So just to educate some people, because I try to stay caught up on this show, not just because, JR, you're doing a great thing here and I want to take notes, but also I want to be able to rebut some things if I miss a few shows. And Purdue's actually over 1 scholarship next year as of right now. And that's without Gillis and without Morton. So Gillis and Morton both played 4 years at Purdue. So in a traditional world, Painter had basically recruited in a way that he was planning that they were going to be gone this year. So we didn't even have room for Gillis or Morton to come back this year. So for them to be like people we lost, or they a culture loss, that no Purdue fan really sees it that way if they kind of know their stuff, because there was not room for them to come back. And then, like I said, we're still over 1 scholarship next year, so we don't have room to bring a transfer back. We're going to have somebody like maybe a Waddell or somebody give up a scholarship and maybe rely on NIL money to basically pay for their schooling, because that's an aspect that maybe many people haven't thought about in college sports now is, maybe you can keep extra players on your roster without a scholarship because you can give them NIL money to still cover their schooling. So we're still, like I said, we're technically over a player next year, so there's no room to bring in a scholarship player. And I think that, Heidi demonstrated at times, especially late in the season, that he could be that guy that steps in as a 3. And with 6 players, I think half these freshmen coming in could compete for a starting job right off the bat. So, and then also to say 6-man class, I wouldn't like that every year, but that's not the norm for Purdue. Like, normally he brings in about 3 guys a year, but last year we only had 1 recruit, 1 freshman, which was Miles Colvin. Before that, it was 3 straight years with 3 recruits coming in. So that's not the norm for Purdue. Norm is 3 or 4 players, but he knew he was going to have some roster voids this year, or at least thought he was, until COVID and those kind of things, played a hand, and some guys being able to play another year, and we had to make some decisions. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily dogging on like a 6-person class. If you maybe think like, oh, we're not going to be as good this year, let's bring the freshmen in, get us some time, and like things are going to be okay. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm not saying Purdue's not going to compete for the Big Ten this year. At the end of the day, like, they're going to compete for the Big Ten. This is Purdue. This is Matt Painter. Like, this is what he's established at this program, right? I mean, that's what they're going to do year in and year out. The thing I look at is like, do they have enough pieces to contend nationally again? Like, are they going to be a real Final Four threat the entire year? Or is this going to be a team that possibly sneaks up? I mean, don't get me wrong. I believe in Braden Smith. I mean, I've been one of the Braden Smith defenders. I love me some Braden Smith and how he's able to pass the ball. But I have had my questions about kaufman-renn and how that's going to work out. I know you believe in him much, much more than I do, Russ. But however, I just haven't seen it consistently. I've seen it in pieces here and there, but I haven't seen it consistently. Kent, Tell me, who are you siding with here in this discussion, the recruiting versus the transferring? What are your thoughts here?
I'm going to side with you, kind of, I think. I think that it is a mistake to bring in 6 guys and not leave a spot open for how much talent was available in the transfer portal. Like, Russ, are you excited about all 6 of these guys that much that it closes off any opportunities to get anybody in the portal? Like, you can't be.
Yes. So
really,
we're bringing in another 7-footer. So for the 2 guys that we lost in the front court, in Gillis and Edey, we're bringing in 2 7-footers to replace them in Jacobson and Wilberg. We've got a guy in Caleb First who didn't see the court in like 2 of our last 3 games, who Izzo himself has said he could be starting for pretty much any team in the Big Ten right now, but he's sacrificing majorly for Purdue. Kanan Catchings, if you watch Overtime Elite, has been playing very well this year. Jakari Harris, son of Glenn Robinson, is going to be a possible contender for a starting job this year. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm very excited about these guys. They're higher rated than what Painter usually gets. I believe they're, if I'm not mistaken, they're a top 10 class. I meant to look that up before this show, but yeah, it's a very talented class. I'm very excited. I think there is 1 or 2 red shirts in the class, but there's a lot of talent coming in this year for sure. Like these guys, I think Heidi and First are probably the incumbents in getting the starting 3 and the starting 5 spot for Edey and Jones leaving, but Harris, Colvin, even. Catchings could challenge for a starting 3 job or 2 job. And then, Jacobson and Berg are not to be slept on. You have 7-foot guys on the bench. Like they're going to have a shot to start for a Matt Painter led team.
Okay. I don't think he is excited. I don't think in my mind, I'm looking at him and I'm like, these guys aren't talented. Like, that's not what I'm saying. Like, I just look at the freshmen around college basketball nowadays, and you don't see the freshmen in college basketball make this super big impact like you used to, partially because guys are sticking around longer because of NIL, and also guys are in their 5th, 6th, sometimes 7th year. I mean, Seth Towns could have came back for his 9th year or something like that. I don't think he did, but he could have this year, which would have just been absolutely insane. But I mean, at the end of the day, I believe in Catchings. I think Catchings is going to be a good secondary ball handler for this team. I just question if he goes up against, a super veteran guard in the Big Ten, is he really going to, pick him apart a little bit, because he's going to look at him. He's going to see the inexperience. Catchings might have all the skill in the world, but if he has that inexperience, is it going to really hurt Purdue for a little bit in the game? I don't know. I'm not trying to say that Purdue, like I said, I'm not trying to say that Purdue is not going to contend for the Big Ten. They're going to contend. I just look at it and I'm like, if you possibly would have gotten a transfer or 2 instead of maybe 1 or 2 of these recruits, I think Purdue could be a consistent top 10 team again this year.
Well, so here's the thing, Braden Smith's going to play 35 minutes a game. Ethan Morton was technically our backup point guard last year, and he averaged maybe 3 or 4 minutes as a point guard last year. So, Harris or any of those guys are not going to be asked to run the point very much, if at all, this year. They have Braden Smith's going to play 35 minutes. Fletcher Lawyer's going to play 35 minutes. I think that Trey Kaufman-Renn's going to play 30, 35 minutes. So then you're only talking about these freshmen being asked to play anywhere from 8 to 12 minutes. So it's not like we're going to lean on them heavily, but you talk about freshmen in today's day and age, and that's one thing that frustrates me about Painter's going to get left behind in the transfer portal era. Well, transfer portal the NIL has been around for 3 or 4 years now, and Painter just made the Final Four. Yeah. With a team with 1 transfer. So we're in this. We've been in this for 3 or 4 years now, and he made the Final Four. So absolutely this can work in this day and age. So I think that, when look at last year, right? Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer started. Now the snapback's going to be we lost to a 16 seed in the tournament, but Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer started every single game for that team that won the Big Ten by 3 games and was a 1 seed in the tournament. So I do think that Painter can put freshmen in position to succeed in this conference and in this day and age.
I think that if I worked for Purdue, if I was on the coaching staff, I would love this strategy. We get our guys and we keep them. That's a great strategy. You can build a culture around that. It's awesome. As a fan, I would always want to have a spot open just for when someone enters the portal. There's that intrigue of hey, we could go get this guy, and you guys don't have that, which you're a little bit more level-headed about it. You don't care. You're excited about everybody that you already have and everyone that's coming in. But, as a casual fan, I get excited when guys move around, and it's intriguing to me, and it gets me excited about what the team can look like and how it's going to be different the next year. And Purdue just doesn't have that. But as I said, if I was working for Purdue, I would say this is how I want to build my culture. So I'm not disagreeing with how he's doing it. I'm just bored by it as a fan.
My bad, Jeff. I said catchings. I meant Chikari Harris. He's the guard in the class. I just was looking at catchings. So thank you for the correction there. Russ, Phillip looks like he has a question he's looking at here. He says, Braden Smith is proven to be elite, but who else do you trust next year? Lawyer, TKR have been inconsistent. I know you love TKR, so I know you're not going to agree with that, Russ, but everyone else isn't proven. Who's going to be the next guy in your mind? Obviously, like you said, Braden Smith, elite, but who's going to be that second kind of Robin to his Batman?
Thanks for checking out the College Huddle. We'll be right back, but please do like and subscribe. We do want to make sure you know that we have a new episode every single day focusing in on a different conference. You can also visit thecollegehuddle.com to find a list of all of our podcast partners and great articles written by me and so many others. Please do go check us out. We appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the episode.
So, inconsistent is, we're talking about semantics there, because inconsistent in his production as far as filling the box score, yes, but his efficiency, no. Like I said, Edey played 35 minutes the last 2 years. So where's TKR getting his touches? The times that Edey got in foul trouble, or there's a game last year where Edey missed the game completely, TKR goes off for 20 plus. And Painter's already talked about how, TKR is doing a great job of paying his dues. And that next year he's going to get a lot more touches than he's been getting his first few years. And that he believes, and I believe Painter when he says this, because Painter's kind of the, Bill Belichick of Big Ten basketball, that he just says it like it is. And Drake Kaufman-Renn's a all Big Ten caliber player. Now, the problem with the new Big Ten and 18 teams is you could have like 10 guys that are first team all Big Ten caliber, but only 5 are going to make the team. But I do think Drake Kaufman-Renn can be that go-to post guy this year. But you're talking about Caleb Furst also getting more minutes. And Braden Smith is the only guy returning from the all Big Ten first team last year. So, we're returning the best player from the conference last year. Plus Drake Kaufman-Renn showing the ability to play well. And Heidi, I mean, you saw that dunk he had in the national championship game, so he's got the ability to put it in the bucket as well. So, I think that, Drake Kaufman-Renn or any number of guys could step up. Like I said, we got 2 7-footers too. We've seen what Purdue does with 7-footers in the past.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like in my mind, this is not like, is Purdue going to be middle of the pack of the Big Ten or at the top? Purdue's obviously still going to contend for the top of the Big Ten. I mean, I'm really right now, I'm debating, am I going to choose Indiana or Purdue to win the Big Ten this year? Purdue's the one at the past 2 years. So 2 years or 3 years? They didn't win
2 years. 2 years. We lost it by 1 game back 3 years ago. So yeah,
that's right. So, like they've won it the past 2 years and they almost won it 3 years ago. So like, I think at the end of the day, I'm going to go with Purdue just because it's Matt Painter, it's Purdue and what they've done. But that's the biggest thing for me is like, are they going to have the firepower to be able to make it to the national championship game again? That's the question for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And Purdue's heard that, Purdue fans have heard that Indiana promise, year after year, coach after coach, that this is the year they're going to be picked to win the conference, and then they turn in an 11-9 season or a 12-8 season. So I'm not sold on Indiana. I think that, part of the reason I don't like the transfer portal lean is because to me it's like playing 5-card poker, going all in and then turning in 4 or 5 cards and going, let's see what we got. Can it work out? Sure, you could draw 4 aces, but it's not guaranteed to work. You look at Team USA in the Olympics, right? Do we win the gold medal every single year? No, even though we have the best.
Yes, we do. USA.
It should, yes. And I'm not. Don't paint me as an anti-UCA. I'm just saying, like, you can have the best players, and if they don't work together, it's not going to work, right? Illinois, it worked last year, but 2 years ago with Shannon Jr. and Coleman Hawkins on that team, they went 11-9, and now you're talking about replacing all but 2 players on that team. Like, yes, there's talented guys coming in. There's no doubt. You're playing Division I in the Big Ten, in my opinion, the best basketball conference in the country. You're going to have talented guys on the roster, but until they actually get on the court and play together, how's it going to work? Khalil Ware was supposed to be IU saver last year, and they didn't even make the tournament.
Good question here from Kevin Greenwood. He says, for some reason, people have Purdue as an elite team or some top 2 team in the conference. I don't see it. Kevin, for me, I'll just give you my reason. I'm not going to tell you what to think. For me, I see Braden Smith, and I think he's one of the best point guards, at the very least, top 5, if not top 3 point guard in the nation, in my mind. And I think that Fletcher Lawyer is somebody that when he gets hot and he goes off, it's really, really hard to beat Purdue when that happens. Granted, like Russ said, production has been a bit inconsistent, but he's a guy that if he goes off and he makes it happen, and then, people don't realize, like, Trey Kaufman-Renn is, I think, the 3rd highest recruit Purdue has ever gotten in their history. So, if he can realize that potential, which, again, I'm just saying he's been a little inconsistent, but Russ makes good points that when Edey didn't play, he did go off in that game. If he can realize his potential, you have a really good team there. And like I said, a catching, very highly rated recruit, Jakari Harris, he's another good recruit. That's my question is, like, in those crunch time games, not throughout the entire season, in those crunch time games, if Jakari Harris is relied upon as a ball handler, can he make it happen? So that's just my reasoning, Kevin. Like I said, I'm not going to tell you what to think, but you guys have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would say that there's only, like, if you look at the conference, it's not that great next year. There's only going to be a handful of teams that are going to be in the conversation for even challenging. I think I could list 5 right now. It would probably be Purdue, Indiana, Illinois. I'm really high on UCLA, and I don't know who the 5th team.
Ohio State.
Okay. Ohio State, sure. So those 5 teams. It's going to be
a good front court, though. It's going to be a good front court.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Sean Stewart and Aaron Bradshaw. Sorry.
Yeah. So, but I guess my point is there's just not a lot of teams that they have to beat really to be in, what Kevin's saying here, the top 2. At the lowest, I would say 4 for Purdue next year. That would be the floor. And, obviously maybe Michigan, Jeff. Yeah, maybe. All the other teams, though, even Illinois can be lumped into this conversation. Illinois, Michigan, UCLA, those teams all have, a lot of what ifs. Like, what if this guy's good? What if the coach is good? Like, for Michigan, Purdue doesn't have that. We know right now, obviously, we know what they're losing. We know what they have, and we know what their coach is going to be. So there's a level of consistency that can give me some confidence in saying they're a top 2 team. That's the difference between a Purdue and a Indiana. Even they got a lot of transfers. Illinois got a lot of transfers, so they need everything to work out. Purdue, we know what we have with them. That's the difference.
Good point, Kent. Russ, you want a final word on the Purdue conversation here?
No, but he did say something that I brought up in a past show too. That the Big Ten is a little bit mid as a whole next year, but I think that adding these 4 West Coast teams helps a lot of those middle of the road Big Ten teams to maybe get over that hump and make the tournament. Like in Indiana, that they should be much improved and even compete for the top. But even if they don't, I think they should go 3-1 or 4-0 against these new teams. And like a Northwestern and Nebraska, a Michigan, I think Michigan benefits greatly too from playing those 4 teams. I don't think that the floor of the Big Ten, I think, is going to be lower next year. But I think that helps a lot of these middling teams that have missed the tournament just barely by needing 2 or 3 more quality wins.
Could be. I know that there's teams looking right now like Iowa and Oregon and stuff like that are going to be near the bottom. I do kind of feel bad for Iowa. Owen Freeman's really good, and he just doesn't have anyone else. Philip says Indiana is relying on Rice and Carlisle, who were good in the bad Pac-12. Are they really as good as Indiana thinks? Transfers tend to get overvalued in the offseason. You bring up a good point, Philip. I do think that in my mind, Indiana has better shooting now. And I think they have better guard play than Gabe Cupps and Xavier Johnson, personally. Trey Galloway is still there. I think Trey Galloway was asked to do too much last year. I think with a more appropriate role, it's kind of like Chucky Hepburn last year. 2 years ago, Chucky Hepburn was asked to do everything for Wisconsin, and he really struggled because when you ask a guy to do more than what he's capable of doing, it just doesn't look good. But then you put Chucky Hepburn in the role where he's a good defender, he orchestrates the offense, and he has playmakers and shot creators around him. It works out well. But hopefully with Trey Galloway this year, he's actually asked to do a role that is much better suited for him and not to be the it guy as guard.
And he left off the best transfer that they got, which is Ballo. I mean, he is good, for sure good, and they are relying on him, and they should.
Ballo and Renew is a scary combo in the front court. So if Ballo can play,
but he's making a good point though. Yes, there's the other guys though. Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying. Like, there's those other guys are like, what if they are good? Then Indiana's at the top. Like, that's kind of what I was saying about the difference between them and Purdue. And
what if Mike Woodson uses them the right way? I mean,
what a world that would be.
That's what I was going to say about Galloway. Galloway got, I think abused a little bit and pushed off to the side sometimes for Renew and Ware when, Galloway might have been having a hot night, but they just kept feeding Renew and Ware and maybe lose a game by a bucket or two at the end. And it's like, come on, like Galloway's done so much for this team. If he's the hot hand, play the hot hand.
Yep. Ryan brings up Goody as well, coming in from Illinois, shooting 40% from deep. Goody is a very, very good ad for Indiana this year. So it's Goody ad. Yeah. Gonna be a lot of Indiana basketball, Indiana matchups this season. I'm here for it. I love Indiana basketball, and if UCLA can shimmy themselves in there as well with the whole John Wooden conversation, it's gonna be a fun season. So.
I have a fun question, JR. Sorry, one last thing real quick. I know we've been going long on this. If you had to pick the next state to make a Final Four, which state would you pick? Would it be Indiana? Would it be the state of Michigan? You get Michigan and Michigan State. Would it be Illinois or California? Next state to get a Final Four team.
I mean, I'm going to pick Indiana.
Okay. That wasn't as exciting as I thought.
Well, but if I'm thinking the second one's more interesting because I look at either Illinois, California, or Michigan. I think Michigan has two coaches that can definitely get there. I think California
have gotten there.
Have gotten there. You have a team that can definitely get there with a coach who can get there, and then you have USC with a coach who can, who has had a good career, but Musselman hasn't got to the Final Four yet, right? Farthest he got was at Elite Eight, I think, at Arkansas. I think that was the year he took his shirt off, which I need him to do that after a Purdue game or something like that. Just see that.
I'd prefer not because the meaning behind that is that Purdue lost. So let's not see that.
Well, but no, it's actually they hit the shot and then Trey Kaufman-Renn hits a buzzer beater full court shot and then he's just standing there shirtless and sad.
In Mackey Arena because it's at Mackey this year, so it'll look real awkward.
Exactly. So, yeah. All right. Yeah. Russ, you have a thought on that? Indiana, Illinois, California?
When he said state before he listed options, I was thinking chaos. So I was thinking like North Dakota, like give me some random, some jackrabbits in the Final Four or something.
North Dakota, Alaska, Maine.
Just an obscure Final Four like Hawaii, North Dakota State, Idaho, and Montana. Final Four. Yeah. Boom. The ratings on that would be through the roof.